Here's what I ate in a day. For breakfast, I made Vietnamese pizza. I added mini sausages, cheese, Kewpie mayo, and sriracha. And I really love how crispy the outside is, but then the inside is super soft and creamy. For lunch, I made some salmon rice paper chips. Just add some Kewpie mayo again, Thai sweet chili sauce, sesame oil, seeds, and scallions. Cut up your rice paper and then fry it, and just make sure that you really shake out that oil. For dinner, I finally got to try Crab House. I ordered uni rice with a side of uni, and of course the soy marinated crab. My favorite part is the head. You just add some rice and then mix everything together. It's so good. I loved eating these in Korea. It's just so hard to find over here. Then I went home and I was craving something sweet, so I had these brown sugar boba ice cream bars. What I ate in a day. I made these breakfast muffins. You can pretty much add whatever you'd like. I used bacon and cheese. I've also been eating a lot of matcha lately. It has a lot of caffeine, so it definitely keeps me energized all day. Here's what the muffins will look like. They are really good and so easy to make. For lunch, I was craving tofu, so I made this salmon noodle. I used dashi flakes and miso paste for my broth. I also love it spicy, so I added some hot chili oil, Japanese pepper flakes, and some hot sesame oil. I also made a really quick broccoli and garlic sauce, so what you do is add your sauces and then some broth and then cover it until it's soft. Then add your potato starch slurry and it should thicken up like this. So that was my lunch, and then for dinner I had some friends over for a pasta party. I love to host these food events every month, especially when it's something like this where everything's really hands-on. None of us have done this before, so some of us really struggled while others did really well. Each of us made a different dish, and then at the end we all got to showcase it. What I ate in a day. So I started with these onsen eggs. I like to keep these in the fridge to have throughout the week. I add chili oil, Asian mayo, sesame seeds, seaweed flakes, and scallions. If you like runny eggs, these are perfect, and I had this with some kimchi. Then for lunch, I made a poke bowl with some salmon and tuna. For the salmon, I did a creamy mayo-based sauce, and then for the tuna, I did a ponzu-based sauce. So to a bed of rice, add some furikake to season your rice. Add your fish and whatever toppings you like. It's so much cheaper to make poke bowls at home, so I never buy this out anymore. And then for dinner, I'm trying this Thai green curry. The directions on the back said to just tear both packages and then put it into the container and microwave for 90 seconds. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I actually really did like this. It only took a couple minutes and I had no dishes to clean up. Here's what I ate in a day. So for breakfast, I wanted to make this Korean braised tofu dish, and I will list all the sauce ingredients right here on the screen. This is good as a meal or a side dish, and it pairs well with pretty much everything. And I also made this silky onsen egg with some Kewpie mayo and chili oil. And that was my breakfast. And then for lunch, I made these Chinese cucumbers. Just use chopsticks so that you don't cut all the way through. Sprinkle some salt to draw out the water. The sauce is really simple, and I just eyeballed everything, and just make sure that you rinse it well so it's not too salty. I also pair this with some cheese tteokbokki. Eating this always reminds me of the street vendors in Korea where you can get this for like $2 in plastic cups. But yeah, this was really good. For dinner, I wanted to use my palikro that I had in the fridge. So these are really salty, and that's why it's really popular to make it as a pasta dish. I used milk and cream for the sauce and topped it with some furikake and Parmesan cheese. And I ate this with some rosemary butter mushrooms. Here's what I ate in a day. So for breakfast, I wanted to try this tortilla trend that I've seen on Jelly Bean Celine's page. It was really easy. You just want to make sure that you use all that leftover baking grease to flavor everything. It's going to taste so much better this way. I also cracked open this coconut, which was a bit difficult. And this breakfast was so good, I definitely recommend everyone to try it. And then for lunch, I made a salmon teriyaki. All you need is equal parts sake, soy sauce, mirin, and sugar. Cook your salmon, but you don't need to cook it all the way because we're going to cook it again later. Soak up all that flavor with some veggies. Then in a clean pan, add back your sauce and reduce it, and cook until the sauce is thickened. And this recipe can be used for pretty much any protein of your choice. And then for dinner, I was craving some wonton soup. So add some chicken broth and your aromatics. And for the wontons, I'm using equal parts pork and shrimp. To season, I'm using soy sauce, fish sauce, oyster sauce, garlic powder, and black pepper. Then wet your wonton, fold it in half, and then bring both sides up together. Cook these in a separate pot of water, and then just bring everything together. Here's what I ate in a day. So I've been seeing a lot of people make Turkish eggs lately, and I wanted to give it a try myself. I made my yogurt sauce, and then I poached some eggs. And then you want to make the chili oil, which is just butter, olive oil, and these Aleppo chili peppers. And I loved how fancy everything looks, but it was a really easy dish that took me like 10 minutes to make. For lunch, I wanted to use my homemade veggie stock, so I decided to make some salmon noodles. These are dashi flakes for extra flavor, and then I added some dried seaweed, bibigo wontons to make this a more filling meal, and I also added some shrimp and chili oil. And just like breakfast, this took no more than 15 minutes, and then I also added this onsen egg that I had in the fridge. Then for dinner, I wanted to make a miso glazed cod, so you want to rinse it with some sake, and then make your marinade. I also paired this with some cauliflower steaks and then brushed it with some olive oil and seasoning. I broiled the fish for about 12 minutes, and then towards the end I used some more sauce to glaze. Then just for some extra color, I also torched it. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I will definitely give you a recipe soon. What I ate in a day, but I'm getting over a cold, as you can probably tell by my voice, so all of my food is focused on trying to get better. So my first meal of the day is one of the top foods to eat when you're sick. I'm making congee with bone broth. You basically just let it cook until the rice breaks down, and I'm also going to add garlic and ginger as well. In the meantime, I'm making a ginger, lemon, and honey tea. I know ginger helps soothe your throat, and the mix of these three are all really good for you. So after 10 minutes of letting the ginger sit, add your lemon and a spoonful of honey. And spicy food is also good when you're not feeling well, so I'm adding a spoon of chili oil. Then for my next meal, I started really early since homemade broth takes several hours to cook. With this broth, I'm making a Thai coconut chicken soup. This is tamarind, which you can find at any Asian grocery store. And once I have a really flavorful broth, I'm adding coconut cream, which makes it really creamy and adds a slight sweetness. This really soothed my throat and did make me feel a lot better. And then for a late night snack, I had this mochi filled with pistachio ice cream. What I ate in a day. So I'm a matcha drinker, and I love making myself a cup of matcha in the morning, and today I'm keeping it simple by just adding hot water. I'm also not a traditional breakfast person, so my first meal of the day I am making a poke bowl. I like a variety of textures for my fish, so half of the salmon I am dicing into cubes, and then the other half I'm mincing. For the cube salmon, I am making a soy sauce and chili based sauce, and I will leave all the ingredients right here on the screen. And then for the minced salmon, I'm making a creamy mayo and sweet chili based sauce. And there's no need to measure any of this, just add a bit at a time and just as you go. This stuff is optional, but I like to season my short grain rice with sushi vinegar. It gives it a really nice tangy flavor. And then I'm sprinkling furikake on top, which is a Japanese rice seasoning. And to finish this off, I'm adding cubed cucumbers and this bluefin tuna along with dried roasted seaweed. And I like to make these little seaweed wraps by adding rice and fish and rolling it up. For lunch, I am making miso glazed cod. I start by washing the fish with sake, and this cleans the fish and removes all those fishy odors. The sauce is just 4 ingredients: white miso paste, sake, mirin, and sugar. Save a few spoonfuls of sauce to brush on for later, and then the rest used to marinate in the fridge. Bake it 400 until it's flaky, and then I'm adding sauce on top and torching it till it's caramelized. And I'm eating this with mushrooms on the side. Then for dinner, I wanted to use my leftover chicken broth that I made. I'm adding my aromatics, which are lemongrass, lime leaf, and Thai chili pepper. Then I'm seasoning with fish sauce and tamarind paste. And the tamarind gets a bit clumpy, so I'm using a strainer to mix it in. Then I'm also adding in coconut cream to make it creamy and give it a slight sweetness. Towards the end, add shrimp, and then finish this off with a squeeze of lime, cilantro, and sliced pepper. And this is one of my favorite Thai soups to make. What I ate in a day, but I'm leaving for the East Coast soon to see my family, so I'm trying to empty out my fridge. I'm using these wheat noodles that I've had in the fridge for a while now, and since they're fresh, it only takes a few minutes to cook. In the meantime, I'm making my sauce of tahini, soy sauce, dark soy sauce, sesame oil, black vinegar, and sugar. And I'm not going to measure anything, I just taste test and add more if needed. When the noodles are done, make sure to keep the leftover water to add to the sauce, and I pair this with a soft-boiled egg, and that was my first meal of the day. Then I had some chicken and jalapenos left over, so I wanted to make a Korean chicken dish. For the sauce, I'm using gochujang, gochugaru, soy sauce, mirin, oligo syrup, and minced garlic. I'm using a cast iron to cook this since it's going in the oven later. And I normally use mozzarella, but I'm just using what I have in the fridge right now. As a side, I have these pickled garlic, and I'm adding sriracha and red pepper flakes. And I was really happy with how this turned out. It's spicy and cheesy, and the sauce gave it so much flavor. What I ate in a day, and this is day 2 of trying to clean out my fridge before I leave. A lot of you asked me where I get my salmon for poke bowls, and this one is from Riviera Seafood Club, or you can also find fish at a Japanese or Korean market. You really don't need to measure, just add a little bit at a time, taste it, and then add more as needed. I'm seasoning the rice with sushi vinegar and doing half salad, and the salmon skin is my favorite, so I'm not going to waste that. I made the salmon 3 ways: cubed, minced, and sliced, and then added my garnishes that I will list here. And then to eat this, I like to make wraps with a dried seaweed like this. For dinner, I'm roasting cauliflower. Also, PSA, make sure to wash your veggies really well because I was about to roast this little guy. I brushed that with olive oil, and then I'm also making a Japanese cucumber dish using soy sauce, rice vinegar, and sugar. I have some leftover tofu, so I'm frying that in potato starch and adding a soy garlic glaze. And then I'm also making miso butter noodles. And I know this is a lot of food, so I will be eating this for leftovers tomorrow. What I ate in a day, and this is the last day of cleaning out the fridge before I leave to see my family on the East Coast. So I'm using medium firm tofu and then turning this into teriyaki tofu. The sauce is just equal parts soy sauce, mirin, and sake. And then to get it crispy, I'm coating in potato starch before frying. I also have this cold infused dashi, and then adding anchovies for more flavor. And then I'm pairing this with soba noodles and chili oil. Then for dinner, I'm cooking shiitake mushrooms. I like to add a splash of broth to help expel the water faster, and then towards the end, add just a splash of soy sauce. I also have some palikro left, so I'm making palikro pasta. A lot of you guys always ask me what this is, so palikro are the eggs of cod, and they're really salty, so you're not supposed to eat it by itself. I like to buy the ones that are seasoned, and these work really well as a creamy pasta, but it also works mixed into rice too. And I know a lot of people think it's strange to put fish eggs into pasta, but honestly, it just works so well together. You'll see this dish sold all over at restaurants in Korea and Japan, so just give it a try and you might just like it. Here's what I ate in a day. So I'm making a dish that's popular in Japan. I'm mixing an egg into very hot rice, and this is going to slightly cook the eggs, kind of like how carbonara is made, so I wouldn't consider this entirely raw. This gives the rice a creamy consistency, and then I'm adding sesame oil and furikake, which is a rice seasoning for some extra flavor. You can eat this by itself, but I like to take these roasted seaweed squares and make little wraps with it. For lunch, I'm making a really easy teriyaki salmon, and I do have the recipe for this on my website. It's a really nice day outside, so I wanted to pack a lunchbox and eat this at the park. So pan fry the salmon on both sides, and then clean the pan and add the sauce, and let it reduce until it starts to thicken. On the bottom of my lunchbox are zucchini noodles, and then I have a spam musubi and dumplings. Then for dinner, I'm having this 19-course omakase. They give you a lot of variety. You get 2 kitchen appetizers, 2 sushi appetizers, 11 pieces of sushi, a Hokkaido uni rice, an A5 wagyu dish, 1 ham roll, and a dessert. We were sat right in front of the sushi chef, so it's kind of like dinner and a show. And it was really fun to watch him make all the dishes for you, especially the torch pieces. The fish was fresh and the pairings were also very creative, and we were so full by the time dessert came, which was tiramisu and green tea mochi ice cream. What I ate in a day, and I am sick once again. So I don't know what's going on because I was just sick last month, and this is coming from someone who has barely gotten sick ever since COVID started. But I'm starting my day with congee, which is the traditional sick food, and I always like to keep frozen rice on hand because it'll give you a really quick congee since the rice breaks down much faster. I'm pairing this with a century egg. It honestly tastes just like a regular egg, but the yolks have a very rich flavor. And then I also made a ginger honey tea, which helps soothe my throat a lot, and it's also supposed to boost your immunity. Then for my next meal, I wanted to make a soup with this Japanese kabocha squash. So I chiseled it with avocado oil and then roasted it at 400 degrees. And then I scraped it out of the shell and added my homemade chicken broth. And I also love to drink kombucha. I actually brewed it home too, but this one is my favorite flavor. It is the pink lady apple. What I ate in a day. I'm making a really light lunch since I have a big dinner later. This is a creamy Japanese sesame dressing that's really easy to make. I will leave the ingredients right here on the screen. And I'm also pairing this with cold green tea salmon noodles and a dipping sauce called suyu. Then as a snack, I cracked open this coconut. I got this for $3 and it's so much better than what you'll find in a bottle, and you can also eat the meat inside. For dinner, I went to Niku X, which is a new Yakiniku restaurant in downtown LA. We chose the 14-course tasting menu. First course was a wagyu and bluefin tuna crudo. Next was this caviar, uni, and wagyu tartare. There's a grill right on the table and it's all cooked for you. We had salmon and this buttery live scallop. Then they brought over this beautiful platter of wagyu and dry-aged meats. I've never had beef tongue like this before. The texture was so much softer than what I'm used to. And then we finished our meal with green tea ice cream and creme brulee. What I ate in a day while I'm getting over being sick. So I started feeling sick about 4 days ago. It wasn't too bad, and right now my only symptom is lots of congestion, so I decided to make ochazuke. I'm not using the stove for this. I just added rice and instant dashi flakes for my broth, and I'm adding in my leftover salmon from dinner last night. This was very comforting, and I also put this together in like 5 minutes. I drink tea daily, but today I'm adding ginger, lemon, and honey to it. This is supposed to relieve symptoms more quickly and helps with congestion. I've been sleeping so much lately and I haven't been doing my normal routine, so today I forced myself to go to Solid Core. It's my first day getting out of the house in a while, and this definitely made me feel so much better. When I got home, I started on this garlic confit. It is very easy to make. All you do is add garlic cloves to a baking dish and then submerge it in olive oil with a little salt and bake that at 250 for about 2 hours. I like to eat this on top of crusty toasted bread, and I'll be able to keep this in the fridge to use throughout the week. For dinner, I'm making pho with my leftover rotisserie chicken. I start by removing the meat from the bones to make my broth. There's also a lot of flavor in that bag that it came from, so add that in too. I'm roasting ginger and onions to make it sweeter, and then adding that in along with the rest of my pho spices. It's really hard to find Viet ingredients where I live, so I'm just adding what I have. The longer you let this simmer, the more flavorful the broth will be, so I cook this for about an hour and a half, and then I'm removing the bones and straining it. I was gonna add the bouillon seasoning, but my broth didn't need it. It had plenty of flavor, but it is helpful if you have less time or use more water. I'm using fresh rice noodles, which are so much tastier if you can find it, and then to put this together, I'm adding onions, herbs, and a splash of fish sauce. Here's what I eat in a day cooking my favorite fancy restaurant meals. So one of my favorite things to order at brunch is Eggs Benedict. It is so overpriced, but really easy to make at home. I started with my hollandaise sauce of egg yolks, lemon juice, and melted butter. All you do is slightly whisk in the melted butter until you get a slightly thick consistency, and then I'm adding French butter to an English muffin, and on one side I'm adding prosciutto, and then to the other I'm adding smoked salmon. I was very happy with how this turned out, especially since it was my first time making this. For lunch, I'm making uni pasta. Uni is one of my favorite foods, and I love the combination of uni and pasta. I'm cooking the pasta slightly underdone, and then I'm adding olive oil and garlic to a pan. Add the pasta, a little pasta water, and cream, along with lots of Parmesan cheese. Add more of each as needed, and then when you get the right consistency, add in the blended uni. I also have some caviar, so I'm doing a caviar bump because this is the best way to taste the flavors. I was very happy with how I plated this. I think it looked great and honestly tasted even better than the restaurant since I made it exactly how I like it. And for dinner, I have this New York strip steak that I'm seasoning very liberally on both sides. Don't forget the sides of the steak and mop up all the seasoning so it doesn't go to waste. And I'm putting this in the fridge to dry out a bit, which will give me a better sear. I like to use either stainless steel or cast iron to cook my steaks. And then when it's done, there's a lot of flavor left over in that pan, so do not waste it and instead use it to cook your veggies. I'm also shucking oysters to pair with my steak and topping it with my favorite combination, which is caviar, uni, and a few drops of lemon juice. What I ate in a day, and it's that time of the month, so I'm craving creamy and comforting foods. So for my first meal of the day, I wanted to make a loaded baked potato soup. I've seen this recipe all over social media and finally wanted to give it a try. I cooked up plenty of bacon, and then I added onions, butter, and some garlic. And then I added some flour to make a roux and poured in some chicken broth and milk. I kind of just eyeballed everything. This recipe is very forgiving, and I'll leave all the ingredients on the screen as a guideline. I'm adding mini cold potatoes, and then for some extra flavor, I added chicken bouillon paste. And then I just let this simmer to cook down for about an hour and a half. When my soup was close to done, I started making this brie and bacon baguette. I added fig jam for a little sweetness along with prosciutto and arugula. And then at this point, my soup thickened up a lot, so I'm adding some heavy cream for some richness. I also mashed about half of the potatoes for some texture, and I'm adding back the bacon bits and then some sharp cheddar cheese. And I ate this with my sandwich and Cape Cod chips. I've been testing some rice cooker recipes, and this one I added some dashi flakes to give some flavor to the rice, and then mirin for some sweetness. And then right on top, I'm adding a salmon fillet seasoned with some salt. I love rice cooker recipes because they're so easy and everything's made right inside, so it's a really easy cleanup. It's also a really gentle cooking process, so it cooks the salmon perfectly. And then for some extra seasoning, I added furikake and sesame oil. I also topped this with ikora, which are salmon eggs, and then I like to take some roasted seaweed and make little rice wraps with it.